What's up, you marvelous legends? My name is Tyler Adolfo. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really appreciate you all, and it means the world to have you all here. In this video, I'm going to talk about my journey with having bipolar disorder. Specifically, I'm going to talk about where I was prior to being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I'm going to talk about where I went after being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And then finally, I'm going to end by talking about where I presently am since being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So, during my junior year of college, fall semester of 2021, I was diagnosed with bipolar type 1 disorder with psychotic features. In the lead up to this diagnosis, I was experiencing a plethora of powerful delusions. This later escalated into various hallucinations. And as a result of these delusions and hallucinations, I exhibited extreme behaviors that were uncharacteristic of the Tyler Adolfo that I had been up until that point. I'd always been an ardent learner, passionate student, and assiduously committed to my studies, devoted to my work. But due to these delusions and hallucinations, I fell into a profoundly dark place. A dark place that was extremely difficult for me to climb out of. One of the many delusions I experienced was that I was this important person, that I was invincible even, and I had these feelings of grandiosity, like I could do no wrong, that I could take on the world. There was no limit to what I can handle at one given time. So for context, I was attending university full-time, but I was also working full-time. And I think the combination of these things may have triggered or even escalated my mania and culminated in me experiencing psychosis, that major psychotic break with reality. People in my social circle quickly noticed and took note and pointed out the fact that I was acting out of the ordinary. They did this to one another. I ended up getting hospitalized at Cooley Dickinson Hospital, which was nearby my college of UMass Amherst. And I spent roughly 5 days in the psych ward. And in that time, my symptoms only exacerbated. Being in the psych ward only made my symptoms even worse. You would think that you go to the hospital to get better, but in my particular case, when I went to the hospital, I came out significantly worse. And so it wasn't an ideal situation. At this point in time, I started to have delusions that people were after me because of all that I knew, that I was the savior to the world, that only I could fix and resolve the problems confronting the world. I left the hospital in that mindset. They released me despite the fact that I was still displaying a wide array of irrational behaviors, characteristic of mental illness, characteristic of bipolar disorder with psychotic features. To this day, I wonder how things could have been different had they kept me in that hospital against my will. Although at the time I would have been adamantly against it, in hindsight, I really wish that they had committed me long enough to alleviate or eliminate the symptoms that I was experiencing, because my episode would only continue for several months after the fact that I got released. You would think that I would be at the tail end of my episode after being released, but this was not the case. I was released without being put on any medications, without any follow-up plan to see doctors, and while still experiencing symptoms. I was having hallucination phone calls with a military general that does not exist the day before that I was released from Cooley Dickinson Hospital. And this is all in the medical notes. And so, it's hard for me to talk about and go back because I do still feel a great deal of frustration over how things could have gone differently. But the past is the past, right? We all go through hardships and challenges. This was certainly the hardship of my life, probably the greatest one that I'll face in my life, if I'm being totally honest with you. I hope this is the hardest one that I've faced, because it was so difficult rebounding from this manic episode. Of course, I ended up getting in a fight while I was manic and in psychosis, and due to that fight, I got expelled by my university. I started to miss work. I was staying awake for extended periods of time. I started drinking heavily, consuming voluminous amounts of alcohol in order to cope with the depression, despair of experiencing these various delusions and hallucinations. And so a plethora of consequences built up. I lost my job. I lost my education. I lost my relationships. I no longer was accessible to the things that previously fulfilled my life. I was no longer available and at a point where I was taking advantage of the things that fulfilled my life. I completely lost all of them. Upon going home, I ended up going into treatment, and this time they put me on medications. And within 4 to 6 weeks of being on these medications, my symptoms completely went away. The symptoms of mania were gone within 4 to 6 weeks of starting medications. The first medication I went on was Abilify, and my psychiatrist quickly put me on many more. I lost count of the number and cannot possibly name every single one I've been on because there's been so many. But the medications worked. They pulled me out of mania. And so these are the consequences I dealt with as a result of bipolar disorder, the manic phase. And now it was time for me to deal with the consequences of the depression phase. During my 2-year major depressive episode from 2022 March, I would say, till December 2023, so I would say, almost 2 years, I socially isolated entirely. My weight climbed from 180 pounds to 354 pounds. And I've been working on that now. I'll get to that a little later. I don't want you to think that I'm neglecting that important responsibility of managing weight and being at a healthy weight, monitoring my BMI number, because I do care now. But during that depressive phase, I didn't care then. I had so much racing thoughts, so much built up anxiety, phobias, and depression. The despair that I felt was so overwhelming. I felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel, that cliche saying. I was in the tunnel and it was pitch black dark. There was no getting out. And the cave was sealed off. But inch by inch, I worked my way towards the escape. And eventually, I got through some of the cracks and crevices, and slowly but surely, I gradually got closer to the exit point, to where I could start to see a glimmer of light and eventually see large amounts of light. During my depressive episode, I felt no passion for anything at all. I socially isolated. I was depressed, inside, locked indoors, experiencing anhedonia. I had no passion for the things that previously interested me. I wasn't like sitting around playing video games or going for runs or going to the gym or doing any of the things that normally I would derive great sense of enjoyment from. I was sitting inside, sleeping away my time, depressed. It was so overwhelming. It was the depression that it was so painful. You could feel it in your chest. You could feel it in your shoulders. You could feel it in your face. It's just so overwhelming. But I got through it. And I credit a lot of my ability to get through it to starting to upload mental health content on this channel and interacting with all of you. Because hearing your stories gave me inspiration and hope, the perseverance to continue on, the inspiration that I derived from hearing your stories and of success and rebounding, and that this illness is not permanent. It doesn't have to define you. I mean, it is permanent, but its consequences don't have to be permanent. Someone with bipolar disorder is going to have bipolar disorder for the rest of their life. Unfortunately, there is not a cure. There is not a known cure in the medical community. But that doesn't mean we can't still live a good life. And lately, I've been living a pretty good life. On the job front, I recently started a job and I'm working again, which I know may sound not very significant to some, but considering that I haven't worked in 2 years and thought that I would never work again, and that I was actively applying for disability, this is a huge step in the right direction for me personally. And I have confidence at work. Thanks to my medications, I have a bolstered sense of confidence. Thanks to my job in itself and the routine that comes with it, I have a sense of purpose again. And I feel great going outside every single day again. Previously, during my depressive episode, I would be inside all the time with the exception of going to appointments. I wouldn't even visit family. Family would come down and they would go to the beach with my mother, and I wouldn't even go with them. That's how bad it was. I did not want to leave the house. I did not want to live. But I'm in a better place now. And I'm going to the gym, and I'm losing weight, and I still got a long way to go, but I've gone from 354 to 305 since December of 2023, and it is now June 28th, 2024. Am I content with that progress? No. But am I happy that I'm making progress? Absolutely. I'm taking up interest in the things that used to interest me before. I'm playing Call of Duty again to cope with, the dark days. It actually does diminish my depression in some way. So if anyone ever wants to play Call of Duty, let me know in the comments below, and I will get you my Activision info so we can play. But I digress. I'm working again. I'm going to the gym again. I'm passionate about things that I was previously passionate about again. And on that note, I'm reading again. I was always an ardent reader, and I'm happy to be reading once more. But the point of this video is to let you know that there is hope. I hope that in this video I encapsulated all that can go wrong with bipolar disorder, whether it be the manic phase or the depressive phase. But in my particular case, I'm stable now. Stability can happen. Don't give up on yourself. Please don't give up on yourself. You have so much to live for. You have a purpose in this world. Live in the moment, because life is so ephemeral and short-lasting. We never know what day is going to be our last. And there's people who care about you. And you should care about you more than anyone else, because you're worth it. You're worth it to God. You're worth it to this world. You're worth it to me. So please don't give up on yourself. Keep on fighting. I promise you that regardless of the amount of demons that you're facing, the loss that you've experienced, that there is hope on the other side. You could crawl towards that exit from the tunnel, and you can get out of that tunnel and be back surrounded by light once more, as I have done. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Peace and take care.